Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man walah. Inshallah, this will be about Sifatul Salah. We started the chapter Bab Sifatul Salah, the chapter on the description of the prayer. And we're going over Kitab al-Umdat, which is a Hanbali matn, a Hanbali manual, a Hanbali abridged text by Imam ibn Qudamah, rahimahullah, who is one of the greatest scholars of the Hanbali school. In his layer, al-Mutawassitin, or the middle layer of the school, chronologically, he is considered the greatest. So we're going over the description of the prayer, Sifatul Salah, and we will go over today. Last time, what did we finish last time? We said that he will, raise his hands, he will, then after he raises his hands and says Allahu Akbar, and we talked about Allahu Akbar, he will put his hands right and left below the navel, and then he will look down at the place of his prostration, and that is where we stopped, right? He will look down at the place of his prostration. What is he doing next? He starts by saying, ثم يقول سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك وتبارك اسمك وتعالى جدك ولا إله غيرك. And then he will say, O Allah, exalted are you and all praise is due to you. Your name is the most blessed and your power is the most supreme, and there is none worthy of worship but you. This is called Dua al-Istiftah, the opening supplication. Istiftah is to open, or is to request the opening of something, or demand the opening of something, or seek the opening of something. That's Dua al-Istiftah, the opening supplication. Dua al-Istiftah is Sunnah, not wajib according to the vast majority. Some said that it's wajib, but the very vast majority said it is Sunnah. So it is Sunnah according to the vast majority. The only madhab that disagreed is the Maliki madhab. Malikis, they say Allahu Akbar, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, immediately after Allahu Akbar. They have no Dua Istiftah, they have no A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajeem, they have no Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. They say Allahu Akbar, and then they say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. They took to heart the saying of Anas, that I prayed behind the Prophet ﷺ and Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman, and used to start by the Salah by Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. How did the Jumhur understand this? Is that this is the first thing they said aloud, but for the Jumhur, there is so much to be said before Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, and for some verifying scholars of al-Madhhab al-Maliki, because we said before that in every madhab there are those verifying scholars who do study the matters very impartially. So Ibn Abdul Barr did not agree with the Maliki on this stance. And Ibn Abdul Barr, the stature of Ibn Abdul Barr in al-Madhhab al-Maliki. Keep in mind though, that those particular scholars are not considered the greatest within the madhab, even though if the madhab prides itself on having them. So when Ibn Abdul Barr is mentioned, the Malikis, their faces glow. Ibn Abdul Barr is one of the greatest scholars in the history of Islam, and he is a Maliki scholar. But is he particularly faithful to the madhab in the sense that he would be, the one to ask for the position in the madhab, or the one to verify the position of the madhab for the Malikis? No. Ibn Abdul Barr belongs to this class of scholars like Ibn Taymiyyah. Remember, I just told you that Ibn Qudamah is the greatest in the madhab, in the middle layer, the Mutawassitin of the madhab, because Ibn Taymiyyah is not considered, although the madhab prides itself on having Ibn Taymiyyah, and all of the people that came after Ibn Taymiyyah, verifying scholars, al-Hajjawi, al-Mirdawi, al-Buhuti, Ibn Muflih, all of the great scholars, they do quote Ibn Taymiyyah in their books, but when you're looking for a madhab al-Hanbali, you're not basically seeking that from Ibn Taymiyyah, despite the fact that he is Hanbali. When you're looking for a madhab al-Maliki, you're not seeking that from Ibn Abd al-Barr or Ibn Rushd, despite the fact that they were of the greatest Malikis and the greatest Malikis of their times. But because they are mujtahid mutlaq, absolute mujtahid, then they do venture out of their madhab. Like Ibn Taymiyyah sides with the Hanafis on so many issues, with the Malikis on so many issues, and the Shafi'is as well. So they do venture outside of their madhab, then they are not considered an authority in reporting the madhab because of this tendency, because they are considered of this layer of mujtahideen, which is the tier 1 of the mujtahideen, al-mujtahid al-mutlaq. Whether or not they said it about themselves, but they practiced ijtihad mutlaq, and they were considered of this layer of scholars. So Ibn Abd al-Barr walked out of the madhab because he recognized the strength of the position of the jumhur or the majority on this particular issue. And there are so many other hadith that indicate that there is something to be said before Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Starting with Dua al-Istiftah, the opening supplication. We have a hadith that is reported by al-Bukhari and Muslim from Abi Hurairah radiallahu anhu, where he asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you know, بأبي أنت وأمي يا رسول الله رأيت سكوتك هنيها بين التكبير والقراءة ما تقول. You know, so he asked the Prophet ﷺ, what do you say before بأبي أنت وأمي يا رسول الله? How do you translate this? Yeah, this is the translation I know. It's like a bad translation, but anyway, there's nothing better than this in here. So it's an endearing statement where he's saying to him that you're dearer to me than my father and my mother. So what do you say when you're silent, temporarily silent between takbir and qira'ah? What do you say? This is reported by Bukhari and Muslim. And then he said, Allahumma ba'ad bayni wa bayna khatayaya. He said, I say, Allahumma ba'ad bayni wa bayna khatayaya kama ba'adta bayna al-mashriq wa al-maghrib. Allahumma naqqini min khatayaya kama yunaqqa ath-thawb al-abyad min ad-danas. Allahumma ighsilni or ighsil khatayaya. In Bukhari, Allahumma ighsil khatayaya bil-ma'i wal-thalji wal-barad. Oh Allah, set me apart from my khataya or my sins as you set apart the east from the west. Oh Allah, purify me from my sins like you purify a white garment. Oh Allah, or clean a white garment. Oh Allah, wash off my sins. Ighsil khatayaya with water, snow, and hail. So this is reported by Bukhari and Muslim. And then you have Hadith Ali radiallahu anhu, which is reported by Muslim. وجهت وجهي الذي فطر السماوات والأرض حنيفا مسلما وما أنا من المشركين. This is another dua that is reported by Muslim and others from Ali radiallahu anhu. And then you have the dua that is chosen by the Hanafis and Hanbalis, Subhanak Allahumma wa bihamdik wa tabarak asmuk wa ta'ala jadduk. This particular dua that was chosen by the Hanafis and Hanbalis in terms of establishment of transmission is the weakest of the du'as of istiftah. In terms of the establishment the strength of tracing it all the way to the Prophet ﷺ. We know that Umar radiallahu anhu used to say it. Tirmidhi reported it from the Prophet ﷺ with a controversial chain. Tirmidhi reported it from Aisha that the Prophet ﷺ would begin his salah with Subhanak Allahumma bihamdik wa tabarak asmuk wa ta'ala jadduk wa la ilaha ghayruk, with controversial chain. But corroborated with Umar's doing, because Umar used to say it, so that corroborates the dua. But yes, this sometimes happens. Why? Because both Imam Abu Hanifa and Imam Ahmad lived before al-Bukhari and Muslim, and Bukhari and Muslim were both students of Imam Ahmad. Therefore, it is, they're not looking at it like you're looking at it. They're just not looking at things from the same angle. That this was reported by Bukhari and Muslim, and how come, and this and that. Why did Imam Abu Hanifa and Imam Ahmad choose Subhanak Allahumma bihamdik wa tabarak asmuk wa ta'ala jadduk wa la ilaha ghayruk? Because it has thana, and they call it dua al-thana, or the supplication of thana, praise of Allah. It's all about praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they favored this over making supplication for yourself. Oh Allah, set me apart from the sins, like He said, set the east and west apart. They're saying, I have two du'as here. One is all about Allah, and one is all about me. I choose the one that is all about Allah. Subhanak Allahumma hamdik, wa tabarak asmuk, wa ta'ala jadduk, wa la ilaha ghayruk. And some of the scholars, chose to combine the dua. As the majority said you don't combine, and they even said it is makruh to combine, because it has not been reported that the Prophet combined between two du'as. So the Hanafis, we said in Malikis, they are not saying anything, except that some verifying Malikis sided with the Jumhur. But the Malikis in general, the authorized position in the Maliki madhab, they're saying Allahu Akbar, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. But for the majority, Hanafis and the Hanbalis chose this dua, which is Subhanak Allahumma hamdika tabarak asmuk wa ta'ala jadduk wa la ilaha ghayruk. And the Shafi'is chose the other one, which is وَجَّهْتُ وَجْهِيَ لِلَّذِي فَطَرَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ حَنِيفًا مُسْلِمًا وَمَا أَنَا مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. So this dua, and then also there are reports much longer dua that is established in as-Sahih as well, the remaining of this dua. But the Shafi'is chose this. The Hanafis choose this also, or recommend this dua for nafila, tatawwa, and the same is done by Imam Ahmad. So the Hanafis and Hanbalis are pretty much in harmony on this issue. They are pretty much in agreement on the issue of dua al-istiftah, their choices in dua al-istiftah. So try to remember this. Subhanak Allahumma bihamdik, wa tabarak asmuk, wa ta'ala jadduk, wa la ilaha ghayruk. Everybody memorized it? Everybody knows this dua, right? Okay, to some extent. Okay. So that is dua al-istiftah, or the opening dua. Or opening supplication. Dua al-thana is the one that is chosen in the madhab. Some Hanbalis also said that you could say dua al-thana sometimes, and the dua that was chosen by the Shafi'i sometimes, so that you would have said everything. Then, after dua al-istiftah, or the opening supplication, you said Subhanak Allahumma hamdik, you said Allahu Akbar, you put your hand right on left underneath the navel, and you're saying Subhanak Allahumma bihamdik wa tabarak asmuk wa ta'ala jadduk wa la ilaha ghayruk. What are you going to say next? Al-isti'adha. Yeah, A'udhu billahi minash shaitan al-rajim is the sigha that is prescribed, or the wording that is chosen in the madhab, because it is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, فَاسْتَعَذْ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ. Then you say أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. So al-isti'adha comes right after this. Al-isti'adha, also the Malikis have no isti'adha. But the Jumhur, Hanafis, Shafi'is, and Hanbalis, they consider al-isti'adha to be sunnah. Some of the scholars consider isti'adha to be wajib. Why? Because they said, that وَإِذَا قَرَأْتَ الْقُرْآنَ فَاسْتَعِذْ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ. This command that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded us with. Is it a command outside the prayer or inside the prayer? It has to be either inside the prayer or outside the prayer. And since we agree that it is not, obligatory outside the prayer, then it is obligatory inside the prayer. Ibn Hazm, al-Awza'i, al-Thawri, some of the great scholars chose that position. Now, the Jumhur, they did not agree with that, and they said that the hadith al-Musi' salatah is hadith al-Musi' salatah means the hadith of the man who did not pray well, whose prayer was defective. The man with a defective prayer, Musi' salatah. The man with defective prayer. So Rifa' ibn Rafi' radiallahu anhu, one of the Sahaba, we always say radiallahu anhu, even though his mention usually is in Musi' Salata, not a good. But anyway, he learned from the Prophet ﷺ and he corrected his salah afterwards. But when the Prophet ﷺ saw that he was not praying right, and he taught him how to pray, step by step. The Prophet taught him how to pray. This hadith is frequently used by all the mashayikh, all the scholars, or the mujtahideen. Whenever they want to say something is not obligatory, they say it is not in hadith al-Musi' salatah. Had it been obligatory, the Prophet would have taught it to this man, to whom he described the prayers step by step. Is that good, strong? It's we can talk about this later, but there's a lot of controversy over this issue. And sometimes there is also some inconsistency. If it's not in the Quran, there will be consistency. So any book of fiqh has some inconsistencies. Any writings of anyone will have some inconsistency. But at the end of the day, I want you to remember that you say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, it is Sunnah according to the majority of the scholars, Hanafis, Shafi'is, and Hanbalis, to say A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, and you will say it at the beginning of the first rak'ah only, because the salah is one supplication. So the shaitan did not come back to you in the salah, supposedly or hopefully. So you repel the shaitan away at the beginning of the salah, and he has not come back to you. The Shafi'is said you do it at the beginning of every rak'ah. Every time you recite al-Fatiha, you start with A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. The Jumhur said that you do it or I particularly remember the Hanbalis said that you do it only at the beginning of the first rak'ah. Only at the beginning of the first rak'ah. So this is A'udhu billahi minash shaitan al-rajim. And then you will say what? Why am I not reading Imam ibn Qudamah's? Okay. ثم يقول أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ثم يقول بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Then one says, I seek refuge in Allah from the accursed devil. Then he says, in the name of Allah, the All-Merciful, the Ever-Merciful. You say أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, and then you say بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Al-Basmala, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Is this a verse in the beginning of Surah al-Fatiha? Depends on where you're coming from. It is a verse in the beginning of Surah al-Fatiha according to Imam al-Shafi'i and according to the Kufi and Makki mushafs. In the Kufi and Makki mushafs, you will see, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. They don't write it like this for sure, but and then they will say one. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. They will say two. Okay, in the Shami, Madani, and other Masahif, Basri, Shami, Madani, Masahif, they will not have anything here, and they will say one here. And then they will split the last ayah, غَيْرَ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ. They'll take this part and make it an ayah by itself. Yes, those who started here will make this an ayah by itself. Anyway, according to the fuqaha, this is the qurra. And, so all of them write it, but they don't consider it an ayah in the beginning of the mushaf in the Makki and Kufi mushafs. So According to the fuqaha, the majority do not consider it to be, that is Hanafi, Maliki, and Hanbali. They do not consider it to be as an ayah in the beginning of al-Fatiha. The Shafi'is consider it to be an ayah in the beginning of al-Fatiha. This would be Shafi'i. Consider it to be an ayah in the beginning of al-Fatiha. The Hanafis and Hanbalis, they require that you say it, but they say it is an ayah with which you start every surah. Not an ayah with of the Fatiha, not part of the Fatiha per se, but an ayah with which you start every surah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Is this clear? No, not clear. Yes.
If there is ayah number 1, can it be part of ayah number 2? Can it be not ayah number 1, can it be part of ayah number 1? Like this man, Alhamdulillah, one ayah by itself?
No, they don't consider it to be an ayah. They consider Alhamdulillah, okay, so everyone considers Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen an ayah by itself. Is it ayah number 2 or ayah number 1? It depends. In Masahif, Kufi and Makki, it is ayah number, 1. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim is ayah number 1, so Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen will be ayah number 2. In the rest of the Masahif, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen will be ayah number 1. You see this in the Masahif, right? You see the difference between the Masahif. Okay. So, according to the fuqaha, only Shafi'i considers it to be part of al-Fatiha. The Jumhur considered it to be an ayah at the beginning of every surah except Surah Bara'ah, Surah At-Tawbah. Bara'atun min Allahi wa rasulihi ila alladhina ahadtum min al-mushrikeen. You don't say before Bara'ah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Is this because it is the surah of qital or fighting, or because it is a continuation of Surah Al-Anfal? The different positions here. But at any rate, it's an ayah at the beginning of every surah. It is for certain an ayah in the Quran in Surah Al-Naml, إِنَّهُ مِن سُلَيْمَانَ وَإِنَّهُ بِسْمِ اللَّهِ الرَّحْمَنِ الرَّحِيمِ. But aside from that, is it like an ayah, an integral part of Al-Fatiha or not? The majority said no, it is just an ayah at the beginning of every surah that used to come down, as Ibn Abbas said, to indicate the end of one surah and the beginning of another surah. So you will say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, okay? You're following the majority here, right? And I know some of you may be Malikis, but not trying to force anything on you. Cherno, you look to me like I have suspicions about you. But this is what this is the position of the majority on Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. But you could be Maliki and follow Ibn Abd al-Barr. You will be the really strict Malikis will consider you a traitor at the end of the day. But you have to understand that our Ummah really cannot afford swinging with this pendulum of extremism, madhabism, anti-madhabism. It is with moderation. We're dealing with things with moderation. No fanaticism, no dogmatism, moderation. Anyway. And then Imam ibn Qudamah said, وَلَا يَجْهَرُ بِشَيْءٍ مِّن ذَلِكَ لِقَوْلِ أَنَسْ صَلَّيْتُ خَلْفَ النَّبِيِّ صلى الله عليه وسلم وأبي بكر وعمر وعثمان فلم أسمع أحدا منهم يجهر ببسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Okay, Imam Qudamah said, then he says he should not say any of this. What is this? Opening supplication. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك تبارك اسمك وتعالى جدك أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. 1, 2, 3 will not be said aloud. He says ولا يجهر بشيء من ذلك. They agreed on 1 and 2, that they will not be said aloud. Dua al-istiftah, the opening supplication, and A'udhu billahi minash shaitan ar-rajim. And then he said that he will not say anything of this aloud because of Anas's statement, I prayed behind the Prophet ﷺ, Abu Bakr, Umar, and Uthman radiallahu anhu, and I never heard any one of them say aloud Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Yajharu bi Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim aloud. Very strong, isn't it? Like, who do you need after the Prophet ﷺ, Abu Bakr, Umar, and Uthman? Ends the debate, right? Would never. Okay. What the Shafi'is, they report a hadith where from the Prophet, Daraqutni and al-Bayhaqi. And you know al-Bayhaqi, he particularly traced all the hadith that support the madhab al-Shafi'i. Not out of partisanship or extremism, absolutely not. He's a Shafi'i, he wanted to show that, these are our positions, and he traced the hadith. So there is a hadith from the Prophet ﷺ where he said that if you recite al-Fatiha, فَقُلْ بِسْمِ اللَّهِ الرَّحْمَنِ الرَّحِيمِ. Say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. This was reported by Daraqutni and al-Bayhaqi, and some scholars found it to be reliable or Hasan. There is also disagreement. There's also different variant reports from Anas himself, where Anas said that they said Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim in other reports. So there are conflicting reports from Anas. There is also the hadith of Abu Hurairah, where he prayed and said Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and he said to them, by Allah in whose hands is my soul, I don't know any one of you whose prayer is more similar to the prayer of the Prophet ﷺ than this prayer that I prayed for you. And this also was found to be reliable in transmission from Abu Hurairah. Now we have a problem, right? A lot of conflicting reports. Now we have a problem. And, how could this happen? It can happen. People can forget. Narrators can forget. Narrators can get confused. Does this compromise the integrity of the Sunnah in general? No, it doesn't. You have to have a moderate approach to the establishment of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. My take on this, which I find to be necessary, particularly when you're talking to people who do have knowledge of the Sunnah and the Hadith, my take on this is that we were commanded to act upon ghalabat al-dhann, which is propensity, higher likelihood. When you're comfortable that this hadith is from the Prophet ﷺ, then you act upon it. Do you need to be certain that it is from the Prophet ﷺ? No, you do not need to be certain to act upon it. You have to have higher likelihood, propensity. Chances are this is from the Prophet ﷺ. Most probably it is from the Prophet ﷺ. And with the work that they have done, the scholars of hadith and the collectors of hadith and the science in the science of hadith, you do have much comfort, particularly with the hadith that are reported in Bukhari and Muslim, or agreed upon, or reported by Bukhari or Muslim. You do have a lot of comfort, to the point where some of the scholars, verifying scholars, Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, said that this confers certainty. In all honesty, I do not believe it confers certainty. Certainty is not attainable through singular reports, logically, naturally. It is no one, if you're not coming with like a strong conviction that you are not ready to change, you will not be able to come to terms with that position, that every hadith reported by Bukhari and Muslim confers certainty. which is yaqeen. Because yaqeen is the lot of the Quran and the mutawatir ahadith, al-ahadith al-mutawatir. Anything short of mutawatir hadith and Quran is ghalabat al-dhan. We are commanded to act upon ghalabat al-dhan. But will you be certain that every hadith that came from the Prophet ﷺ in Bukhari and Muslim has come from the Prophet? Sometimes it can be extremely hard. So sometimes the conflicting reports, all in Bukhari and Muslim, if you look at the reports about the Masih al-Dajjal, for instance, the false Christ or whatever he's called, the Antichrist, false Christ, the Masih al-Dajjal, imposter Christ or something. And you look at the conflicting reports of Bukhari and Muslim, some of these must be not from the Prophet ﷺ, because the Prophet cannot conflict himself to this extent, and sometimes they're not reconcilable. Sometimes they're not reconcilable. What we say, however, is that it is just like the Sahaba, radwanullahi alayhim. We have to surround the Sahaba with a firewall, right? Because once you compromise the integrity of the Sahaba, once you compromise the integrity of one Sahaba, you have compromised the integrity of this generation that conveyed the deen to us. Then it is reasonable that you surround all the Sahaba with this firewall. Could some Sahaba have some issues? Yes. But we will not allow compromising the integrity of the Sahaba, because that is breaching, the validity of the transmission of this deen, from the first layer. So we will surround all the Sahaba with a firewall. We surround the Sunnah also that came to us from the Prophet ﷺ with a firewall. If someone cannot come to terms with one hadith that is a singular report, we cannot say that this person is indeed. Because if we say that this is certain, that the establishment of this is certain, that whenever there is a hadith in Bukhari and Muslim, we are certain that the Prophet said it, the person who will not accept this hadith will be considered a disbeliever. So it's consequential. We do not allow people to talk, to compromise the integrity of the Sunnah or the integrity of the hadith, and we consider it to be a bid'ah, particularly when people are obviously wanting to compromise the Sunnah. Because after you compromise the Sunnah, you're done. You're really done. Look at the Quran, the ijmal which is in the Quran, mujmal and mufassal, detailed and how did I translate mujmal before? Ijmal, it just means that it is not detailed. The ijmal in the Quran, it means that it is not detailed. Sometimes it's translated as ambivalent, but it's not what I mean to say here. Sallu, aqimu salah. How do we pray? Or we will be done. If there is no sunnah, then aqimu salah, and everybody he will do it his own way. Yeah, so connect with God. I'm connecting, you're connecting, everybody's connecting in their own way. The deen would not be here. The deen as we know it, Salah, Siyam, Hajj as we know it, will not exist. Will not exist. Therefore, you're surrounded with a firewall. But someone comes to you and says, I really have a hard time, accepting this report. And it happened to be in Bukhari and Muslim. Don't consider them disbelievers. Don't be rough with them, because there is no certainty. You will have to teach them that we will have to accept, even though there is a chance that this did not come from the Prophet. There is a chance. There is a legitimate chance that this did not come from the Prophet, but because of the propensity that it came from the Prophet, because it is the higher likelihood, we act on ghalabat al-dhan. We do this throughout our lives. We don't only act on certainty in our lives. There is no discipline of knowledge where people only act on certainty. People always act on غلبة الظن. And when the Prophet ﷺ sends Mu'adh ibn Jabal to Al-Yaman and orders the people of Yemen to learn from Mu'adh their deen, is there a possibility, logical possibility? You know, keep in mind, you have to also sometimes, when you're conversing with people that do not particularly subscribe to your ideology, you have to refer to logic. If someone asks you, is there a logical possibility that Mu'adh would forget, be confused, and not convey the exact message from the Prophet ﷺ concerning one or two issues or something? Yes, it is. It is logically possible. The people of Yemen were demanded, required to learn from Mu'adh. Required to learn from Mu'adh and to comply, because it is most probable that Mu'adh was right in conveying the teachings of Islam from the Prophet ﷺ. Now, if someone in Yemen doubted what Mu'adh said, Umar did this all the time. He would ask people to bring witnesses when they reported to him something from the Prophet ﷺ, and these are Sahaba. And, you know, Sahaba reporting to Umar radiallahu anhu, like Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, for instance, where he asked him to bring a witness and he brought him Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. He would tell him, bring a witness to testify or to corroborate your reporting from the Prophet ﷺ. Why? Because Umar wanted to have more certainty. Umar wanted to have more certainty. Then, if Umar, from Abu Musa, from the Prophet, so here is the Prophet, here is Abu Musa, here is Umar. Umar is asking Abu Musa to bring him a second person to verify what he's reporting from the Prophet ﷺ. And if Umar wanted more certainty, even though between him and the Prophet is one of the greatest companions, just one of the greatest companions, he's reporting to him from the Prophet ﷺ directly, and Umar wanted more certainty, then it is natural that the majority of the Usuliyin will say, the majority of the people of Usul al-Fiqh or scholars of Usul al-Fiqh will say that singular reports do not confer certainty. Okay? So, the hadith of Anas that are conflicting, Imam al-Shafi'i used some of the hadith where Anas said, so where Imam al-Shafi'i is coming from? Because you feel that the debate was ended. And Imam al-Shafi'i will come back, and Imam al-Shafi'i, if he was conversing with you, you could imagine, you know, if you take that position, that you don't say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim aloud, and if Shafi'i was present, and you both had a debate, you could imagine that you will get knocked down from the first round. It's just, because Shafi'i rahimahullah would say that when Anas, and radiallahu anhu also, when Anas said this, he meant, when Anas said that كانوا يقرؤون بالحمد لله رب العالمين or كانوا يفتتحون بالحمد لله رب العالمين, he said, he meant that they were starting with Surah al-Fatiha, they were not reciting any surah before al-Fatiha. Because all of us agree, you know, except for the Malikis, Shafi'i would say, all of us agree that he did say Dua al-Istiftah and he did say A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitan ar-Rajim. So it is not like he said Allahu Akbar and then Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Anas was saying that he was starting with Surah Al-Hamd, Surah Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. And then he would corroborate his position by reports where he traced that, by Haqi traced to the Prophet ﷺ, where the Prophet said, if you recite al-Fatiha, say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. At any rate, the majority, that's Hanafis and Hanbalis, said you do not say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim aloud, you say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim to yourself, and the first thing that will be said aloud is Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, going off of the most popular and numerous reports from Anas ibn Malik, and some of them explicitly said La yajharun bi Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. They did not say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim allowed. Ibn al-Qayyim wanted to reconcile, and he said, it's just amazing that Abu Huraira would do this, and we're getting these reports that the Prophet ﷺ said Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and then Anas is saying that they never said Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So he wanted to reconcile, and he said, it is very possible that the Prophet sometimes said Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and most of the time did not say it. And Anas was reporting what the Prophet did most of the time. And it is possible that Anas did not catch the Prophet saying Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Very possible that he did not, but Abu Huraira did. There is another explanation. If you think of the age of Abu Huraira and the age of Anas, it is possible to say that Anas was praying in the back because he was a little kid at that time, and Abu Huraira was praying in the front. And you know how Abu Huraira was stuck to the Prophet ﷺ throughout, the last years of his life, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So you could imagine that Abu Huraira, particularly, he was not busying himself with safq fil aswaq, going to the market or anything. He was just there. So you could imagine that Abu Huraira is praying in the first line, and then you could imagine the size of the Prophet's masjid, and Anas, being a child at the time, praying in the back. Not that we are pushing them to the back. If they come to the front, we will let them pray in the front. But, if kids prayed in the back, mostly chose to pray in the back, then Anas may have not heard the Prophet saying Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim because he said it a little bit quieter than Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. So the Prophet may have said Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So Abu Huraira heard Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim and Anas did not. You will have to look for ways to reconcile between these reports. Clear? We will say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim to ourselves.
Still part of Fatiha or not?
It's
part of Fatiha or not?
Oh, you want us to go back all the way?
It's part of Fatiha.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim is not part of al-Fatiha according to the majority, Hanbalis and Hanafis, and the Malikis.
From the Fiqh point of view, from the Qurra point of view.
From the Qurra point of view, the Qurra themselves disagree. And if you're Kufi or Makki, you will consider it like Hafs. You want Hafs? Hafs is Kufi. It is part of al-Fatiha. Hafs Hafs and Asim are Kufis. So it's part of al-Fatiha. Okay. Next. Then he said, ثم يقرأ الفاتحة ولا صلاة لمن لم يقرأ بها إلا المأموم فإن قراءة الإمام له قراءة ويستحب أن يقرأ في سكتات الإمام وفيما لا يجهر فيه. Then he recites al-Fatiha. There is no prayer for one who does not recite it except for the ma'mum, for the recitation of the imam counts for him. It is recommended that he recites during the pauses of the imam and whenever he does not recite aloud. So, Fatiha, la salata illa bi al-Kitab. There is no valid prayer without al-Kitab, the mother of the book, al-Fatiha. Man salla wa lam yaqra bi Fatihati al-Kitabi fa salatuhu khidaj. Whoever prays and does not recite Fatihat al-Kitab, his salah is incomplete. Khidaj, incomplete. You do want to recite al-Fatiha. You do not want to miss al-Fatiha. That is why even the Hanbalis are saying, and certainly for the ma'mum or the munfarid, if you're praying alone, that is munfarid, or you are the imam, you must recite al-Fatiha, right? According to everyone. Now they disagreed whether the ma'mum, the one who is praying behind the imam, needs to recite al-Fatiha. So the Hanbali said you don't recite al-Fatiha behind the imam. But if the imam states paused, then you could recite it to yourself in the pauses of the imam. The Hanafis and Hanbalis agreed on this issue. Why did they agree? Because of two things. من كان له إمام فقراءة الإمام له قراءة وإذا قرأ and then there is the other hadith وإذا قرأ فأنصتوا and then there is the ayah in Surah Al-A'raf وإذا قرأ القرآن فاستمعوا له وأنصتوا. So the ayah, when the Quran is recited, then listen to it attentively. And the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said, فَإِذَا كَبَّرَ فَكَبِّرُوا وَإِذَا قَرَأَ فَأَنصِتُوا. When the Imam makes takbir, make takbir like him, and when he recites, then listen. And then there is also the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever has an Imam, then the qira'ah of the Imam, the recitation of the Imam will count as a recitation for him. Has controversial authenticity. Why is it that the Imam al-Shafi'i said, you will recite the Fatiha, whether you're Imam or Ma'mum, regardless, because there is a report from Abu Dawood where the Prophet ﷺ said, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَقْرَؤُونَ خَلْفَ أَئِمَّتِكُمْ. Perhaps you do recite behind your A'imma, when you're behind the Imam. And they said, yes, O Messenger of Allah, we do. He said, لا تفعلوا إلا بفاتحة الكتاب. He said, don't recite behind your Imam, except with Fatihat al-Kitab, except with the Fatiha. And there are variant reports from Daraqutni and others that corroborate this report. Therefore, al-Bukhari, wrote a small booklet or Risala Latifa about the recitation of al-Fatiha and supported this position of Imam al-Shafi'i. So they're saying recommended, be on the safe side, recite al-Fatiha. Whether you're Imam or Ma'mum, recite al-Fatiha. When the Imam pauses for you, recite in the pauses of the Imam. If the Imam does not pause, recite while he's reciting. So if the Imam is quick and he's recited the entire Fatiha without pauses and the surah afterwards without pauses, then you recite while he is reciting to yourself without any disturbance. To yourself without any disturbance. Okay?
What do you do?
Yeah?
What do you do?
I recite al-Fatiha all the time. Imam or Ma'mum, I recite al-Fatiha. The Shafi'i position here has a lot of strength. And the Shafi'is could argue against the Jumhur that all of the adillah of the Jumhur, the evidence, the report, evidences reported or cited by the Jumhur could be described as am, general, and their dalil could be described as specific khas. Because the Prophet said, may perhaps you recite behind your imams. They said yes, and he said, don't do it unless it is with Fatihat al-Kitab. So he specified Fatihat al-Kitab out of the generality of don't recite behind your imams, out of the generality of listen if when your imams recite.
What does the Jumhur do with that hadith?
Well, there are two ways here that the Jumhur would do this. One is to say that the hadith is not authentic because there is controversy over the authenticity of the hadith. The second one is to say that it is recommended if the Imam pauses. If the Imam pauses, they say that this was a recommendation if the Imam pauses. But not that you recite it while the Imam is reciting. Because that will be in conflict with what they consider to be the command of the Quran. Because Imam Ahmad and others said that this command in the Quran, is it applicable outside the prayer or inside the prayer? If we are in agreement that this command of the Quran, that إِذَا قُرِئَ الْقُرْآنُ فَاسْتَمِعُوا لَهُ وَأَنصِتُوا, when the Quran is recited, listen to it attentively. If we agree that this command is not binding outside the prayer, then where is it binding? Where is it binding? Then this is like a very clear directive in the Quran. Where is it binding? So they say that it is binding inside the prayer. The strength of this command and the other hadith, and particularly if the hadith of مَنْ كَانَ لَهُ إِمَامٌ فَقِرَاءَةُ الْإِمَامِ لَهُ قِرَاءَةٌ, whoever has an imam, then the recitation of the imam would count as a recitation for him, made the Hanafis and Hanbalis comfortable that if you don't recite al-Fatiha, you will be fine. Keep in mind that if you did not recite al-Fatiha, and the Imam was already in ruku', then even in the non-jahri, if the Imam in ruku', according to the Hanbali madhab, and you caught the Imam in ruku', you're okay, your rak'ah is fine. We wanted to finish a little bit more than this. But let's just take 5 more minutes. I have 2 more minutes. I'll take 5 more, then I have 7. I didn't even ask for permission. But after your permission, taking 7. Okay, just to finish we're clear on the Fatiha, right? We're clear on the Fatiha. That the Jumhur said, you will not recite al-Fatiha if you are ma'moom. Even the Hanafis consider this to be applicable in the Sirri prayer, that the qira'ah of the Imam, even to himself, will count for you. But the Shafi'i position, which is chosen by Imam al-Bukhari, is that you recite al-Fatiha whether you are Imam, ma'moom, or single, praying alone. The Imam, ma'moom, and single. They agree on Imam and single. You have to recite al-Fatiha. This agreement is about the ma'moom only, okay? So then he said, ثم يقرأ بسورة تكون في الصبح من طوال المفصل وفي المغرب من قصاره وفي سائر الصلوات من أوساطه. Then he recites a whole surah. He recites preferably a whole surah. If he recites part of a surah, it's preferred to recite the whole surah, even if it is short. But if he recites part of a surah, it is certainly allowable to recite part of a surah. Preferred to recite an entire surah, even if it was short over, part of a surah. ثم يقرأ بسورة تكون في الصبح من طوال المفصل, which is preferably from the long chapters of al-Mufassal. Al-Mufassal starts from where? Qaf. According to the majority, Mufassal starts from Qaf. This is chapter number what? 50. Until the end of the Quran, Surah An-Nas. Okay? Right? From Qaf to An-Nas, including Qaf. This is al-Mufassal. Because the Sahaba used to divide the Quran into 7 parts and recite one part every day. So that in 1 week they recited the whole Quran. The 7th part was al-Mufassal, from Qaf until the end. Some of the scholars said al-Mufassal starts from al-Hujurat. Forget this and just go by this. That's the majority, Qaf to the end. Now, what are the long chapters of al-Mufassal? From Qaf to An-Naba. From Qaf to Surah An-Naba, Surah Amma يتساءلون عن النبأ العظيم. From Qaf to An-Naba, these are called long. From An-Naba to Ad-Duha, they're called medium. From Ad-Duha to the end, Surah An-Nas, these are called short, medium, long. The Prophet in Salat al-Fajr used to recite from the longer surahs of al-Mufassal. That does not mean that if you are, they consider it makruh to not recite the long surahs of al-Mufassal if there is no excuse. The Hanbalis consider it makruh. But it is reported that the Prophet recited إِذَا زُلْزِلَتِ الْأَرْضُ زِلْزَالَهَا in Salat al-Fajr, and he repeated it in both rak'ahs. So anyway, it is permissible, at the end of the day, it is permissible by agreement to recite a shorter surah in Salat al-Fajr, but it is sunnah to recite of the longer surahs, somewhere from Qaf to An-Naba, longer surahs. Shorter surahs in Salat al-Maghrib. From Ad-Duha to An-Nas. Medium surahs, Awsat al-Mufassal, is in the rest of the prayers. You recite something like al-A'la, something like, Surah al-Fajr, so, things like that in the rest of your prayers. The medium surahs of al-Mufassal. Clear? Okay. From Qaf to An-Naba, long surahs of al-Mufassal for Salat al-Fajr. from al-Naba to al-Duha, medium surahs of al-Mufassal in all the salawat except Subh and Maghrib. From al-Duha to al-Nas, short surahs of al-Mufassal, you recite this in Salat al-Maghrib. Keep in mind, the Prophet ﷺ recited al-A'raf in Salat al-Maghrib. So we're not saying that these are like strongly binding recommendations. This is usually how the Prophet ﷺ did it, and this is how you should usually do it. Usually, not always. All of these are sunnah. If you recite قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ and قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ in Salat al-Fajr, no one from the ma'mumin should come and tell you, what are you doing? But if every day you're reciting in the masjid, قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ and قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ in Salat al-Fajr, or al-Nasr and al-Asr or something like this, someone may alert you that perhaps we should recite something a little bit longer in Salat al-Fajr because the Sunnah is such. قولوا قولي هذا استغفر الله لي ولكم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك.